Our space was where they filmed Dazed and Confused. And we thought, okay, that's really cool. It was a movie. It was a real place that they converted into a movie set, but it was abandoned after the movie. So we decided to restore that space to come back to the spirit of Austin and Dazed and Confused, because Dazed and Confused was all filmed around that area. North Lamar, Burnett. Premiere movie posters, we hung them up. With the landlord's help, who was a great guy, he was really interested about the space. He really did a build out to say, okay, how do we still have elements of the movie but make it functional for this office space? And 6600 North Lamar was the first shopping center built in Austin in 1950. So it was a bit of a landmark. We had 3 different office spaces over 3 years because we just sort of outgrew each one. So you didn't buy more space than you need.
Austin Community Capital. This show is a celebration of the spirit of Austin, Texas, honoring our past, engaging our present, and building our future together.
Although it's not the last time.
Sean, I'm grateful to have you on the podcast today. We were introduced by our mutual friend, Bob, and kind of what Bob shared of you that was the reason I reached out is that you are generous with your wisdom, with your knowledge, and pouring into community and pouring into the next generation. So I'm excited to unfold that story today. So thank you so much for being here.
It's great to be here, Austin. Yeah, Bob has been a longtime mutual friend. And as I said, most things he says is true. So I hope he gave you all the good stories about me.
Right on. Well, let's maybe break the ice by letting you share with folks what's a rhythm of life or something that you're doing today or these days that fills your cup.
Sure. So go back about 2 years ago, I retired from full-time work. And so I'd been working full-time since I was 22 years old. I'm now 61, so I stopped at 59. And it wasn't necessarily that number, but I was done, you know? It wasn't filling my cup. And I loved the people I was working with, both my clients and my team. But I wanted something else, and I was ready for that next chapter, and I thought I can wait for it or I can go make it. And so at that time, I decided I'm going to leave full-time work because what I really wanted to do was go back and teach at the college level. So I teach at the University of Texas. I teach marketing classes. And I was fortunate enough that they had an opening and they had a need. And so I slid right in there. And I've been doing that now for 5 semesters. And everything you hear about teachers pay is true. You're not going there to get rich. But I love the preparation required. I love being up in front of the room and delivering on what the students need. And I also like the interaction, the challenge that the students give me as well. So that's what I'm doing now. And in addition to that, I also, in the spirit of teaching and giving back, I work with some small to medium-sized businesses where they're stuck. And stuck means, you know what, they've had maybe a first successful year or they got to a certain revenue milestone, but they don't know how to get to the next one. You know, can be sort of a jumping off point or a chasm they have to cross. So I do work with them out of as a sole proprietor consultant. And that gives me a lot of joy and reward too, to get them unstuck and see them move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm excited a little bit later in our conversation to unpack the foundation of what formed you so that you can give in these different ways, you know, both teaching and then the advising. I'd love to hear maybe a couple vignettes of either, you know, your role as a teacher, time with students, memorable moments, or maybe in your advising work with these companies. What are some memories that stand out or some representative moments for you?
Well, I would say when I started teaching, the way I test drove that was over the past 15, 20 years, I would guest lecture. And so I knew a few professors there, and if they needed somebody to come on and speak about a certain topic, or they wanted to go on vacation for a week, I could come in and take their spot. And I thought, okay, let me see if I enjoy this and I'm any good at it. The good at it is still up for debate, but I did enjoy it. But what it taught me was, here's the level of preparation you need to have. And then I said, okay, I did that for 1 class meeting. Now go do it for 28, because that's a semester, is 28 class meetings. And the moments that sort of are memorable are both sort of gut-wrenching, but also elating. And it's usually a student had asked a question that I did not anticipate. It's not on the slide.
Curveball.
Yeah, it's a curveball, or they see it a different way, or their perspective is a little bit different. It might be a challenge, or just might be a detour we need to take. And the student's always looking, I think, to the teacher, and should expect that they not always know the answer, but how do you take us there? Or what are we going to go cover next? And so I usually take like 2 to 3 seconds pause and then think, okay, how would that look? And I believe in the Socratic method, which is you ask questions. So it's not about me having the answer, which is sort of the gut wrenching. It's like, oh my God, I don't know what the right answer is in this moment. But rather, can I ask some good questions for us to unpack this together and make sure that we bring the rest of the class with us? So I have one of those about once a month, right? Never plan. You're not sure where it goes. It's never the same student either. So you can't necessarily just sort of quarantine that student if you don't want to do it. And it's in different classes too. So different topics come up.
Well, I'm glad that the students are keeping you on your toes. And I love that strategy. And I think, thoughtful questions coming from a source of wisdom can be powerful directives in letting you form your own opinions and letting you probably accelerate learning beyond just hearing and receiving facts and input. Yeah. I love questions. I mean, one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast is I love the expression of questions and that tool of getting to know and of learning myself. So that's awesome that you're putting those to work.
That's what we're doing right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I want to unpack a little bit the powerful formation that you had in your different working roles. And I think an interesting starting point is just that fascinating experience at Dell starting in 2007. So tell us, what was it like then? What were you focused on? Paint us a picture of that world.
Sure. So I got to Dell in 1997. So shortly after getting my MBA at University of Texas. And Dell at that time, very entrepreneurial, fast moving, learned a lot, high energy, thoughtful. I always thought I was not the brightest one in the room, and that was a good thing. So smarter people than me that I could sort of steal from, learn from, adapt from. And that never really disappointed. It continued. And I had the 12 years that I was there, I had 11 different jobs. My wife used to sort of think, well, does that mean you got fired? Or you didn't do a good job in the last job, they have to move you somewhere else. It's like, let's get this problem out here. The good news is, no, that wasn't it. It was just sort of the nature and the needs of a very fast moving and big company. It's like, okay, you did something well here, we need you over here. And I love that. If I had to do the same job for 5 years straight, I would quit. If I knew that up front, I would just get bored. So I always wanted sort of some change or adaptation in what I'm doing. So around 2007, and this is where I worked with Bob Pearson, we were, Dell had some quality problems and they were called out in the public domain. Web 2.0 had already launched in the sense that now the democratization of the web, anybody could have a voice or publish on the web, where before you had to pretty much be a web publisher in early web days. And what we were finding out is that people were disenfranchised with Dell, the company, Dell's products, maybe employees with Dell. I had a good friend at the time said, hey, I can't wait till we turn the corner and I can wear a Dell t-shirt again in the HEB and I'm not going to be harassed. I used to get a lot of questions and disappointments while I was standing in line at HEB myself if I had a Dell t-shirt on. So we thought, yeah, okay, that's a good sort of goal. How do we turn the reputation around? And at that time, Bob was requested to sort of go improve overall corporate reputation. And the way that we did that is we had a lot of different sort of web-based platforms. We had a Dell Community Forum, which was peer-to-peer solutions. We had that up and running since the late 90s. Probably I think 99 is when that launched. And it was a great venue for people that had a Dell product, had a question, had a need, could ask somebody who was knowledgeable, not necessarily a Dell employee, but somebody who was knowledgeable. And now you got peer-to-peer solutioning and you got it on your terms. And also those questions and answers helped other people that came behind them. So if you could solve it once it'd be really nice if you serve 1,000 people or 5,000 people to have that exact same question versus calling into Dell, working through a case, getting your solution. And now you're not you have to help that a person one by one in line. So it was a really large enabler and benefactor, and it provided a lot of goodwill around the brand that we had that and we did that. And what we were starting to do was we were identifying on the web where was their dissatisfaction. Somebody had a problem. We didn't take care of them the way we should have. How can we go out and help them? So we would do outreach. We had a team of very good resolution and de-escalation experts. And they also knew product, and they would find people in blogs. They would find people on different websites like Yahoo back then. And they would reach out and in a very polite way, I see that you're dissatisfied. Can I try to help you? And we would always make sure that they knew that this was a representative from Dell. And by doing that, other people saw that we were doing the right thing and sentiment turned. So we might not have definitely didn't fix everybody's problem, but we fixed enough and we demonstrated, I think, humility in the way a company seldom does in a very public way. Lots of times we were beat up and attacked because you sort of show up and everybody's already upset and they're not ready for you to help them. They're ready for you to be screamed at or to be sworn at, whatever it might be. So I had team members that had to take those beatings, but what they were really good at was sticking with it and resolving one by one. And they weren't supposed to let go until that person says, "I don't want your help."
Man, what an incredible and challenging experience. And I think you can probably safely earn the label of community turnaround specialist with what you were doing in that very large community of Dell customers. And some things that stood out to me, Sean, of how you approached that situation and the team approached it was you had to be really in tune. How are people experiencing the product and the company? How are they experiencing these interactions when they have a challenge and they need help? You had to be really humble because that was a hard time and there was probably challenging feedback that was not fun to receive. And you had to take perception from a negative place and be moving it slowly toward a positive. So I had to be really humble and then had to, really quickly take learnings and then turn that into action. Mm-hmm. So man, I can imagine that would be quite a journey to be on.
It was, getting back to your one of your opening point, how do you fill your cup? It was very rewarding also. And it wasn't by the number of people you helped, but sort of the sentiment that they expressed that they can't believe that Dell demonstrated that humility, offered that one-on-one assistance in the channel that they were in versus saying, you know what, call me instead or go wait in line over here. And the team members felt really good about it. We felt in terms of our mission really good about it. And then ultimately we did turn that negative sentiment from Dell around. So we reduced it by half. In about a year and a half as well. So it wasn't overnight.
This show is supported by Loyal Home Concierge. You can take a company public, but you just found a scorpion in the guest room. Welcome to Austin. We'll handle it. LoyalHomeConcierge.com.
Yeah, it was something that we did really well, which then created another job opportunity for me that I didn't see.
Huh. Take us on that path. And I imagine at that time you laid out, the advent of a new way for customers to be talking online, kind of creating a new potential challenge for companies. Yeah. Probably other companies maybe had similar challenges as Dell. Yeah, where did you go? What did you do with that expertise?
So around the same time, we were getting some good external press, both in web-based publishing and print publishing in terms of Dell learns to listen, Dell taking care of the customer. And as you can imagine, other business leaders are reading these things like Fortune and Business Week. And one of our clients that bought our hardware was coming down for a visit to our Round Rock campus. And this was Comcast. And Comcast in those days, like most cable companies and telephone companies, you love to hate, right? The agent never shows up. They didn't fix my stuff. Your bills are too high. You made a billing error. I wanted to cancel. It's too hard to cancel, all these things. And Bob and I and the team spent a day and a half with them open playbook. Here's what we're doing. Here's what it looks like. And it was their chief communications officer and one other person who was there. And they said, this is great. You've opened our eyes. Who can you recommend that can come back to us and to Philadelphia, where their headquarters is, and work with us? Because we have some work to do. And I said, I don't know. I said, well, who are you guys using? I said, we're learning this ourselves. This is baptism by fire. We had a little bit of agency help, like we wanted to execute something, but the concepts, the ideas, the operational implementation, that was all internal. And I turned to Bob and I talked to a few other people. I said, there's other companies that need this type of help. And over the course of a year, Bob and I both did these executive presentations about what we were doing inside Dell. And almost every time it's like, this is great. You opened your eyes. Who can help us? It's like, I don't know. So about that same time, I had a good friend also named Sean who worked at Microsoft, and he was doing similar things inside Microsoft. And we talked to a few other people, said, is there a business outside of this? And I thought definitely there was a business. At Dell at that point, if you had a business idea that maybe Dell should go do, it probably needed to be $1 billion in value. It wasn't going to be $1 billion. But I said, what if it's $50 million, $100 million, whatever it might be? So I started to think, okay, there's a lot of interest. It's always nice to know when your equity is at a higher price, either outside your company or inside your company. And for the first time, I thought I was higher price outside of my company because people were asking for this and there wasn't a solution. So I left Dell in 2009 and helped start a company called AnsiView, small consultancy / agency. And we went and worked with Fortune 50 companies that had the exact same problems. And what we required of the people that we hired is, you've done what we've done at brands that people would have heard of. And so that was the only thing that we needed to sell, which was our experience, and here's where we've done it. And it was right after I made the announcement, I left. I got a phone call from a woman who used to work at Dell, then was at American Express. She was an SVP at American Express. And she said, how fast can you get to New York? And so the way that she sold it to the CMO at that time at American Express was, hey, you should meet with Sean, because if he could do it at Dell, where she used to work, then he could definitely do it inside American Express. And that was my first consulting job, was American Express.
Man, that's incredible.
And then just all big brands sort of followed suit. We never advertised. It was all word of mouth. We grew year over year, 2 to 3x. And then ultimately, after 3 really solid years, a lot of companies looked at us. They wanted to buy us. We were okay being bought and thinking, okay, what do we do in addition to sort of our single solutions? And we sold to PricewaterhouseCoopers. So that's where I spent 10 years, and I left full-time work in 2023. Yeah, 2 years ago.
Man, well, thank you for giving us a sense of that timeline, and credit to y'all for really understanding and seeing the market opportunity. And I think the market validation you got even pre-launch is the envy of every entrepreneur out there. Yeah. You were having these big brands say, yes, we have this pain point, and hey, can you help? Or who's out there to help? And then you form the team to do that. And I want to focus on the team for a little bit, because I think what you built there was very unique. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it was the culture of that community. So maybe start with, what's behind the company name, and what does that mean? And then give us some tenets of the company culture that let you do what you did well at Dell and now do it with many other clients.
Sure. So company name AnsiView. So ANTS, the 6-legged bug that crawls on the ground. It was the antithesis of bird's eye view. So a lot of times people say, give me the bird's eye view of what our customers are thinking, which means big macro. AnsiView would be the opposite, which was, what are our customers sort of doing, thinking, saying, and sort of walk with it on the ground. So that was the name behind the name. The name worked really well because our clients would tell us, we really like your name, and they would ask us that same thing. What does it mean? How'd you get it? What does it look like? So to help sort of the culture, our culture was a spirit of sort of curiosity, fun, dependability or support, lean on each other. And everybody had an aunt name. So we really kept that aunt. And on your business card, you had your name, and more than a title was your aunt name. So my name was Aunt Wrangler. And I can't remember how I came up with Aunt Wrangler. But we did have a gentleman who was an Army vet, and his was Army Aunt. So I thought that one was really good. But then we had sort of like Aunt Whisperer, Aunt Chef, or, so if you had a passion or interest, we tried to bring that with Aunt, and then that was your name. And again, our customers, our clients really loved it. They say, oh, that's really fun. That's really clever. So anytime you can, I think, go into a sales type meeting and sort of very quickly have people ask you questions that aren't about them yet, and they get to learn a little bit about you, and it's not all about, well, let me tell you why I'm great, or why we're, here's what you should do, and give you answers, but really sort of get very conversational, like coffee talk. It goes really well, and it tends to be memorable. And those are the things that the people, like, they would say after 2 or 3 years that I worked with somebody, they call me back up, or they needed more help, or whatever it is. Goes, yeah, I remember when we first met, you told me the story about this. It had nothing to do about the company, nothing about the work we did for them. And so our culture, we were 35 people spread over 3 offices here in Austin, Seattle, and Mountain View, California. We had sort of local culture, and then we sort of shared a company culture. So we defined our values very early on. We hired to those values. We worked in teams, usually sizes of 3. We didn't like for people to feel that they were in isolation or by themselves. We would come together every year, all of us, for sort of training and celebration. So that's the way we all came together. But when we paired people up or set up our teams of 3, we would try to pull people from different offices. So don't make this an Austin-only type of team to go support American Express, unless the expertise really dictated it. So we would always want to pull people and let our team members meet each other and have fun with each other. At that time, I'm trying to remember what the application was. I think Microsoft bought it. But anyway, there was sort of an application, like a chat application. And that's how we kept each other informed of what we were doing each day. But we did it in a really fun way. And when we sold the company, we had to get rid of that because we weren't going to bring it over. And we published all of that. And people read through it, like 3 years of these chats. And they remembered sort of, oh yeah, remember that day when, the power went out and somebody decided to do this, or, it was just sort of a really fun memory. And one person took it upon themselves to say, I'm going to preserve this artifact that we had online and put it into print and get everybody a copy. We always wanted people to be capable. So the first thing you did when you were hired is you put together your IKEA desk and your chair. If you needed help, raise your hand. But it wasn't like, it wasn't hazing, but it was like, hey, you get to put together your desk and you get to decide where in the office you want to sit. You like more light, here you can be by a window. You want dark, maybe back in the corner. You want to be, maybe you already had a friend there. You want to sit next to your friend. Great, let's move desk around. So my desk would move to sort of accommodate other people. It's like, I cared, but I didn't care enough as what some other people, where they wanted to sit or how they wanted to face.
Man, you hit on some really powerful tenets of the type of company or community culture that really facilitates excellence. And we've been hearing some of those tenets come up in other conversations. I just want to recap some of those for folks tuning in.
The landscaper went rogue. He's sculpting the bushes again. And a propane guy is a no-show.
We're not going to make it out there today.
Stop managing the managers. Get loyal. We act as the buffer between you and the chaos. We speak contractor so you don't have to. Loyal Home Concierge. We manage the pros.
Having a spirit of playfulness and fun and creativity, not only as a way to connect, but it was a way to just show up to the world and clients differently and to be attractive and be memorable. And so maybe have that unique story that a client holds on to years down the road supporting employees in order to empower them and being able to give them a new challenge that they can run with, whether it's, building their desk or solving a problem for a client. And then providing the type of infrastructure where they really feel supported and known. And so I'll parlay that into a question, maybe focusing in, I know you had some different offices or 3 offices sprinkled around, focusing in on the Austin office. What was unique to Austin culture with AnsIView, and what were ways you supported employees here?
Yeah, a couple things. So we had 3 different office spaces over 3 years because we just sort of outgrew each one. So you didn't buy more space than you need. And the last one that we have is at 6600 North Lamar. And it's in an L-shaped, 1-story connected shopping center. It was the first shopping center built in Austin in 1950. So it was a bit of a landmark, but it had been sort of decayed and abandoned. Right now, in one corner is Style Switch Barbecue, which is a lot of people stop at. And that was the first tenant when we went in. But our space was where they filmed Dazed and Confused. And we thought, okay, that's really cool. It was a movie. It was a real place that they converted into a movie set, but it was abandoned after the movie. So there were still a few artifacts in there about the movie. So we decided to restore that space to come back to the spirit of Austin and Dazed and Confused, because Dazed and Confused was all filmed around that area, North Lamar, Burnett. We painted it's called Emporium, with the name of the pool hall in the movie. We painted that in pool balls inside. It used to be on the outside, but we painted on the inside. We got some artifacts from the movie, premiere movie posters. We hung them up. With the landlord's help, who's a great guy, he was really interested about the space. He really did a build out to say, okay, how do we still have sort of elements of the movie, but make it functional for this office space? And so, we changed a bit of way of look, but we didn't knock down like any bones that mattered as well. The other things that we did is anytime we had somebody had maybe an event or something that they are really proud of, we try to say, okay, what are you passionate about and how can we help you? So one member of our team was very passionate about Awesome Pets Alive and overall sort of pet care and the nature of the no-kill policy that Awesome Pets Alive has. So if we had an event and we could raise money for that in addition to the event, we would do that. And, that way that person, hey, my company did this for me. Some companies would have a matching program. We just weren't that big enough to sort of have a matching program. So we sort of always set up some type of sort of charitable or responsible thing. Because we were small, 35 people, if somebody was, say, raising money or their kids were raising money for a drive at the school, we'd let everybody know and then, suggest you donate, but wasn't required. So it was family in that sense. People knew each other's families and kids and spouses as well. We did dinners. We would do different offsites, and lots of times we would include spouses in those. Sometimes, companies, it's just the employees, but we would broaden it out. We did Friday at 3. We had happy hours because we had a porch out in front on North Lamar, and we would invite spouses or friends to come by. I was a bartender for a while, so I would come up with the cocktails, think about what it is. If we had clients there, they loved it, and they said, "Oh, wow, you guys!" Pretty much, they said, "You're allowed to do this." I said, "Yeah, we are." You didn't really need permission from anyone. When you're at a big company, I never could have done that at Dell, for the right reasons. But here in a small company, we could sort of do it. And I remember Starbucks had come down from Seattle, and they were still there on Friday. And we said, "What would you like for the cocktail?" So we were trying to think about coffee or Starbucks into our cocktail as well.
I love that creativity. And these types of actions from a leader are the types of things that have companies staying for a long time and creating that familial feel that you're describing y'all had at the company. And I love the inspiration of your space. I mean, Dazed and Confused is so deep in Austin lore and so iconic. That would be so fun to, work in an environment like that. So I love the intentionality behind that. And Sean, you've built a lot of cultures over the years, and through the clients you had at ANSI-V, you've influenced cultures. I'd love to hear about what does culture look like for you in Austin now? What does community look like for you personally? Where are you enjoying connecting with people around Austin, and maybe some Austin specific things that are really, lighting you up these days?
Sure. So I think first and foremost, just because I'm spending more time there, is the University of Texas in terms of community. And it's community with staff, it's community with faculty, it's community with students. I've had the opportunity with a few of my teaching assistant students who are graduate students to keep the relationship, post their graduation. So there's one woman who just graduated with her MBA this past May, and she's still looking at different career opportunities, and we talk about every 2 weeks. My wife found we live up in Northwest Austin, but found a weekly trivia contest at a local bar, Dive. And it was a bunch of old people on our team. And I said, we need some young blood. So I called Melissa, the TA, who's much younger. And I said, hey, and I met her husband. I said, hey, would you consider joining our trivia team and maybe bring a friend? Because we need some young blood. And not just because of age, but you need different perspective. If the topic is sports, movies, current events, whatever it might be, history, I might know some things, but I'm not going to know things necessarily from 2010 on. I just didn't pay attention to music that much then. My music's much older. So I think the community, to me, can yield great friendships as well. Other community areas for me have been in some nonprofits here in town that I've worked with directly, both just sort of sharing expertise and at times also writing checks. And I definitely believe that if you have the opportunity to help in as many ways you can, not in one way. So one of those is Austin Theater Alliance, which runs the Paramount and the State Theaters down on Congress. My wife and I have been patrons of that for about 15, 20 years now. And we love what that theater means and the importance of arts and arts education, especially in our society today when lots of times that gets pushed down. I mentioned Austin Pets Alive. I have been on the board there as well and developed friendships and relationships in terms of, okay, how do we help this mission grow? And as Austin gets bigger, the mission gets more challenging for something like that. So community for me, in a good way, has been more local because when I was working, I was on a plane going somewhere else. So I didn't always get to enjoy everything Austin had except on maybe a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And now I'm here all the time, which I love. I get to sleep in my own bed, which was definitely a goal of not working full time.
Oh yeah, a very welcome gift. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate your investment in our city, your investment in these missions and causes that are important to you. And I like that you're bringing different generations together, like that trivia example. Not only did probably your trivia performance improve, but I think just the richness of cross-generational hangouts is amazing. Yeah. Recently, I went on a triple date with my girlfriend and two other couples that were a fair amount older than us. Mm-hmm. And it was just so great. Just the way we could relate, the diversity of opinion. There was a vibrancy that would have looked a little bit different if we just found some couples our own age. And I want to encourage more people to do that because there's just so much richness of connecting with people older than you, people younger, and just going cross-generational and having a diverse community, in the people you surround yourself with. Yeah.
And that's something that teaching has given me. I mean, my audience is between 19 and say 28 years old, graduate versus undergraduate. I can remember when I was at, and at times I feel that I still am that way because I'm immature or young, but I learned so much, by sort of hearing their perspective and asking their point of view, especially around current events. Like, are you concerned about this? What's the most important thing on your mind right now? It's going through. And I try to keep it out of politics. I try to keep it more around It could be around football, how the University of Texas football team's doing, which is another podcast. But they want to talk, and they want to get perspective from somebody older that maybe isn't family, like a parent or a grandparent or an uncle.
You're visualizing the Serengeti sunset. You are not visualizing the 3-hour hold time to change your flight connection in Cape Town. Did you know Loyal does that too? From fixing the faucet to planning your family's African safari, we handle the logistics so you can handle the adventure. Wow! Loyal Home Concierge, your passport to peace of mind.
Let me play on that word family. I'd love to hear what does family mean to you or look like for you, and what does home mean to you?
Family to me, so I think of family sort of like in concentric circles. The smallest concentric circle is my wife Liz and my 2 kids, Keaton and Fallon, who are adult kids now, 28 and 25. Family to me means responsibility, dependability, accountability, that anything that they need, they should be able to count on, and also feel open to ask. But I should also be open and confident to say what I can and can't do, especially with adults. With small kids, it's harder. It's like, you can tell them no because it's a safety issue, but telling them no just because you don't want to do it, usually isn't the best parenting. So I think that's really important to have, and it's also something important to protect. So I will defend my family first and foremost against anybody, best friend, anything. And then the next circle out there is the family I grew up with. My parents are both passed, but my 3 siblings that are both alive, and my relationship with them now as an adult versus growing up when you had to share a bedroom with them and it wasn't the best of times. And then the next circle is their families, in-laws, and my families, like in-laws, their kids as well, and spending time with them and realizing that there are things that you really like and enjoy doing with them, but it doesn't have to be everything. And so tomorrow I'm headed to Charlotte. My brother and his family live in North Carolina. We're meeting in Charlotte to go to a concert. It's Devo and B-52s, which both my younger brother Brian and I were big fans, but we'd never seen. I've seen B-52s, but never saw Devo. So that's family now. I would do that for family. I also want to see it, but I would do that because I said, hey, would you come with me? So family says, yeah.
I love that. And I love the thoughtfulness of approaching different components of your family. And I really appreciate your loyalty and dedication and just perspective on your immediate family. And I really see you as a powerful protector, with your wife and your kids, with what you shared about just how you approach that role as a father and a husband.
Yeah. Might be a little different.
Get the real feedback.
Yeah, you get somewhere in there in the middle is the truth.
Yeah.
You also asked about home. Home for me is Austin, Texas. I've lived here longer than anywhere else. I was not born here. I came here for college, graduated, went in the Navy, went around the world literally for 7 years, came back for graduate school, and have been here since. And so I consider it home, not just because we have physical, home, but my kids both born here, went through all their school until they went off to college. My wife and I, together, we've lived a few places while dating and then married, but this is the longest place we've lived and where we still live. So it's home. I have friends from 40 years ago that are still here. So that's an element of home. I know the streets, most of them, so I don't need GPS to go everywhere. However, my wife will tell you, I do not know the names of the streets in my neighborhood other than 2. So she'll say, hey, I'm down on Oak this. We have a lot of Oak streets. And it's like, okay, I don't know where that is, but I'll find it.
I love that.
But I know how to get home.
You're covered.
I feel that. I feel
concern.
covered. But she always finds it. So like, we lived in this house for 25 years and you don't know the name of that street right over there. It's like, no, I don't.
That's classic. Well, Sean, in your role as a teacher and also working with your employees at AnsciView, you've had an interesting purview into other generations and dynamics of other generations. What are some things you're noticing about Gen Z, and maybe what are some things that Gen Z has taught you?
Yeah, I think it's very easy to, for any generation, put them in a box or, whatever label seems fit. Like Gen Z is lazy. I don't believe Gen Z is lazy at all. I think Gen Z has the hardest time right now. Not in this year or this period, but I think I would not want to trade places with Gen Z. I think it's a lot harder for them. I think more things in terms of the American dream is disrupted, and the challenge to accomplish that is harder. At the same time, I think Gen Z have more permissions because they gave it to themselves, and I think that's a great thing. One of those, and that is very different from over the last, say, 20, 25 years, is you can move from employer to employer relatively quickly. In the past, they would have said, "What's wrong with you?" Like the future employer would have said, "Oh, I see that you were here for 9 months, and you're here for 18 months, and you're here for 12 months. Not a good hire." They would think that. They can't say it to you, but... And the reason is because, no, you would stay put and you would stick it out. But I love that the Gen Zs that I talk to, it's like, if it's not right, I can make a move. It's like, absolutely right. There's no extra innings in life. So don't waste your time. It's something you're miserable. And the way I grew up, and so my dad was of the greatest generation. I'm the last year of baby boomer. I'm sort of baby boomer / Gen X, is stick it out. Sometimes be a man, stick it out. And I did that. But then I molded. I think hearing and seeing other generations or other people's perspectives, you get to decide what's right for you versus just fall into your generational trap as well. I think Gen Z are more curious. They ask more questions. Definitely as students, they challenge more. I think that's good. That's how you learn. So I'm very, very impressed and proud of what I'm seeing in that generation and the generation before it as well.
And this may be quite nuanced, but differences you're seeing between Gen Z and millennials?
I'm not hanging around as many millennials. That might be the problem. I do have some nieces and nephews who are millennials, so I saw them grow up in millennials. But now they're in their 30s, maybe low 40s. So, yeah, it might be hard for me to go back and sort of pick up where they were, where I'm seeing Gen Zs now and, a 20-year-old as well. Their families, their career, they're doing these things, and sort of a Gen Z isn't necessarily matured yet into that stage because they haven't had to, right? They're still young enough.
Yeah, really shaping seasons of life. Well, I'm glad to hear about the hope that you have for the next generation. You're giving, I think, all of our listeners a lot of hope as well. So as we start to bring our conversation to a close, anything that you want to leave the audience with? It could be a source of wisdom or something you're learning right now, or just a place in Austin that you're really liking. Anything that you'd like to close with?
Well, so this is, I tell this to my Gen Zs, and the reference isn't well known enough. So Jack Lemmon was one of my favorite actors, if you know Jack Lemmon's work. And he had a saying to other actors, send the elevator back down. So when you get up to the top floor or you made it to where you want to be, pay it forward. Help that next person. And I think that's timeless. And in your career, in your relationships, if you can find people like that, it helps you so much more than maybe the school you went to or the company that you've maybe have on your resume as well, is that type of sort of behavior and posture, which is to help the people behind you, help them come up. And I think the strongest relationships, whether it's a spousal relationship, whether it's a friend relationship, a business relationship, people with those values find each other and they help each other. Those are the success stories. You always think, were they good or lucky? I think they were both, but I think they had that value to help each other and to bring each other up as well. So that's part of my mission, or how I'm using these times in my life by sort of giving back sort of experience, time, money, whatever can help that. If I'm aligned with their mission, how can I help that as well? And if I'm not, tell them early on.
I appreciate that. Well, you've been so generous with what I'll call your relational wisdom today. And I think I benefited.
No charge.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed our time together, Sean. I'm super grateful for it. And I'm grateful to know that you're out there pouring wisdom into young people at UT.
Whether they like it or not, I do. Yeah.
So
You should ask them, though, next. It's like, we got crazy about this.
We got to get one of them on the podcast.
I'll give you names.
Right on. Well, thank you so much, Sean.
Thank you. It's great being here.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Austin Community Capital. This show is a celebration of the spirit of Austin, Texas, honoring our past, engaging our present, and building our future together. If this conversation sparked something in you, a new idea, a feeling of connection, or just a good laugh, pass it on. Share this episode with a fellow Austinite or a loved one who needs to hear it. Let's keep weaving this fabric of community together. This show is proudly presented by Loyal Home Concierge. At Loyal, we believe that a healthy, thriving city starts within the four walls of your home. We are passionate about supporting overextended executives, the moms and dads who do it all, and the couples who take life by storm. Because we know that when your home life is supported, you are free to support the ones who matter most.
Your kids, your wife.
Whether you need a proactive manager for your home or a creative problem solver for your next big adventure, we are here to help you design a life of intention. LoyalHomeConcierge.com. Let's make life a little more beautiful together. Stay loyal to your community, and we'll see you next time.